The morning run always started the same way. The damp Portland air, thick with the smell of the Willamette River, felt good on my face. My name is Ethan, and my life is about as exciting as unbuttered toast. Work, home, rinse, repeat. Then I saw it. A flicker of impossible color in the riverside grass, shimmering in the dawn light. Curiosity got the better of me. I pushed aside the wet leaves. A tiny snake, no bigger than my hand, was curled up there. Its scales were a fractured rainbow, like shattered stained glass. A nasty gash sliced across its belly, no longer bleeding, but looking grim. It was barely breathing, too weak to even lift its head. My heart ached for it. I'm not exactly a snake person. They give me the creeps, honestly. But seeing it so helpless, something inside me just broke. After a brief but intense moral debate with myself, I sighed, stripped off my track jacket, and gently wrapped the little creature inside. It was so light it felt like nothing in my palm. Back at my apartment, I dug out the first aid kit and used a Q-tip to clean the wound with iodine. I expected it to thrash, maybe even try to bite me. But it just lay there, perfectly still, letting me tend to it. Its quiet trust surprised me, chipping away at my last bit of apprehension. I dabbed on some antibiotic ointment, and with a torn piece of gauze, fashioned a crooked little bandage. "My name's Ethan," I said to the shoebox I placed it in, feeling like an idiot. "And from now on, your name is Serafina." The tip of its tail gave the faintest twitch. It was a sign. My life had a new and very strange housemate. Over the next month, things got weird. For starters, I started sleeping like a rock. No tossing and turning, just out cold the second my head hit the pillow. But in that hazy space between dream and reality, I kept feeling something cool and smooth pressed against my back. It had the distinct texture of overlapping scales. I chalked it up to stress from putting in too much overtime at work. Then the snacks started vanishing. The bag of kettle-cooked chips I just bought, gone. The carton of milk in the fridge, half empty. I was starting to think I was losing my mind, maybe developing early-onset dementia. It all came to a head one night when I woke up thirsty. Stumbling into the kitchen, I saw a flash of rainbow light by the refrigerator, so fast I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. I blinked and looked over at the shoebox. Serafina, or Sarah for short, was coiled inside, fast asleep. I shook my head. Definitely needed more sleep. Sarah's wound healed remarkably fast. After a month, you couldn't even see a scar. Her scales glittered under the lamplight, looking too beautiful to be real. I knew it was time. I had to take her back where she belonged. I carried the shoebox back to the same spot by the river and gently placed her on the grass. "Okay, Sarah, you're home." I stroked her tiny head, a surprising pang of sadness hitting me. She didn't move. I gave her a little nudge. In a flash, she slithered up my arm and coiled tightly around my wrist. "Come on, be a good girl." I tried to unwind her. She just squeezed tighter, her little body trembling against my skin. Steeling myself, I was about to forcefully shake her off when I saw it. Her tiny, bead-like eyes were filled with tears. Actual, literal tears. Big drops rolled down and splashed onto the back of my hand, cold against my skin. "A snake!" Crying. I just stood there stunned. Every bit of resolve, every logical thought evaporated in that instant. I sighed, my defenses utterly shattered. I caved. Scooping her back into my palm, I surrendered. "All right, fine. You win. Come home with me. I'll keep you forever happy." That night, I put her shoebox on my nightstand. I fell into a deeper sleep than ever before. The scales against my back felt bigger and somehow softer. The next morning, I woke up because I was hot. An unfamiliar warmth was pressed against me like a human furnace, and a dead weight on my chest made it hard to breathe. I cracked my eyes open, my brain still booting up. The first thing I saw was a face so beautiful it felt like a punch to the gut. A waterfall of jet black hair was spilled across my pillow and chest, and nestled in those dark strands were two small, crystalline horns that caught the morning light. She was draped over me, fast asleep, her cheek rubbing against my neck with every warm breath. My brain blue-screened. Who was this? How did she get in my bed? Did I get robbed? No. What kind of burglar gets naked and falls asleep on their victim? My first instinct was to grab my phone and call 911. My hand had just reached the phone under my pillow when a soft, slender hand gently pressed it down. She was awake. The woman opened her eyes, hazy with sleep. They were an otherworldly, captivating color, both innocent and alluring. When she saw me, her eyes lit up, and her voice, husky with sleep, was a soft murmur. "Husband, you're so warm. Husband." My tongue felt thick. I pointed a trembling finger at her head. "Who were you?" At the word what, her lips formed an adorable pout, and her perfect eyebrows furrowed. She pointed a delicate finger at the empty shoebox on my nightstand. "I'm Sarah," she said, her voice laced with a hint of a whine. "You just said yesterday you'd keep me forever, remember?" My gaze flickered between her face and the empty shoebox. My entire understanding of reality was collapsing, shattering, and attempting a frantic reassembly. A tiny snake had turned into a woman? With horns? On pure instinct, my hand moved on its own. I reached out and touched one of those beautiful horns. It was cool and smooth like polished jade. It felt nice. The second my fingertips made contact, Sarah's whole body shuddered. A crimson blush spread across her cheeks, and her expression shifted from shy to fiercely possessive in a heartbeat. The next thing I knew, her arms tightened around me like steel bands. The horns are the most important part of a dragon. No one is allowed to touch them except for parents and a mate, she announced in my ear, her tone leaving no room for argument. "You touch my horn. That means you have to take responsibility. From now on, I'm your woman. No, your dragon." I was completely and utterly floored. What was happening? I tried to reason with her, to pry her arms off me. "Miss, please calm down. We're not compatible, you know? It's not gonna work. I'm not in it." Sarah shot back, her tone deadly serious. "I am a celestial dragon, a divine beast." "Okay, fine, divine beast. That doesn't work either." I was starting to panic. "I'm a human. You're a dragon. We're different species. We can't be together. It's called, reproductive isolation." "Yeah, that's it. Reproductive isolation." She wasn't listening. She just buried her face in the crook of my neck and took a deep breath. "I don't care," she mumbled. "You smell like my favorite thing in the world. Clean and warm. I want you to be my husband." Logic had failed. Brute force was clearly not an option. I was trapped, staring at this naked, clueless dragon girl who had decided to claim me as her own. A headache began to throb behind my eyes. I sighed. "Could you maybe put some clothes on?" She blinked her huge, innocent eyes, looking completely lost. With another long-suffering sigh, I went to my closet, pulled out my largest t-shirt, and tossed it to her. She studied it for a moment before clumsily pulling it over her head. The shirt hung on her like a short dress, stopping mid-thigh and only serving to emphasize her long, pale legs. I couldn't just let this happen. I had to get her to leave. "Sarah, we need to talk." I sat on the couch, trying to look stern. She immediately scooted over, pressing against my side and resting her head on my shoulder. "Yes, husband. First, stop calling me husband. Second, you have to leave," I said, forcing the words out. "The human world is dangerous for you. If someone finds out what you are, they'll capture you and dissect you for research." I tried to scare her. Her head stiffened on my shoulder. She sat up straight, her eyes wide with hurt. "You're kicking me out? It's for your own good." "No, it's not. You just don't want me." Her eyes instantly welled up, her voice cracking. "You promised you'd keep me forever. Men are all liars." This was giving me a migraine. That was before I knew you were a... "You think I'm useless? That I can't protect you?" she cried, getting worked up. She shot to her feet. "Fine. I'll show you how powerful I am." She flicked her hand with a look of fierce determination. "Stand back. Don't move." Before I could react, and blinding, seven-colored light exploded from her body. When it faded, the petite girl was gone. In her place, coiling in the center of my living room, was a creature of breathtaking majesty. It was immense, easily 20 feet long, its massive body barely fitting into space. The same rainbow scales shimmered with a divine light, and its horned head nearly scraped the ceiling. The horns I had touched were now magnificent, intricate works of art. I stood frozen, staring up in absolute awe. This was her true form? The great dragon seemed pleased by my reaction. She slowly lowered her massive head until she was eye level with me, and then opened her cavernous mouth. Rows of sharp teeth glinted. A low growl rumbled from deep in her throat, a sound filled with an ancient power that made my ears ring. She was trying to intimidate me, but the fear and screaming she probably expected never came. After the initial shock wore off, I wasn't scared at all. In fact, my eyes were shining. She was magnificent. Ignoring her bared fangs and threatening growl, I stepped forward. I reached out my hand with an almost reverent touch and laid it against one of the huge, smooth scales on her cheek. So beautiful, I whispered, my fingers tracing the elegant lines. Even more beautiful than I imagined. The growling stopped abruptly. She seemed confused, her massive head tilting to the side in a surprisingly cute gesture. A thought, clear as a bell, echoed directly in my mind. "You're not afraid?" I met her lantern-sized eyes and smiled. "Why would I be?" My hand continued its exploration of her scales. "You wouldn't hurt me, right?" All her bluster vanished. Her giant head nudged my palm gently, like a colossal cat asking for pets. The voice in my head was now tinged with a mixture of confusion and happiness. She was realizing that I wasn't like the other humans she'd encountered in the mountains. Another flash of light, and she was human again, standing before me with flushed cheeks. I seized the opportunity. "You can stay," I said, "but only if you agree to 3 conditions." "Anything," she nodded eagerly, afraid I'd change my mind. 1. When we're outside, you can never show your horns or your tail. Only with me. She nodded vigorously. 2. In this house, what I say goes. Another vigorous nod. And 3. You have to learn the basics of human society so you don't cause any more trouble. She thought for a second, then added her own condition. "Okay, but I get to sleep with my husband." Looking into those hopeful eyes, what could I say? I sighed and nodded. What's it like having a dragon for a roommate? Expensive and exhausting. I pointed at the bathroom. "This is where you know. Go." She circled the toilet, studying it intently. Then she looked at me with a serious expression. "Husband, I understand." "You do?" "Yes." She pointed at the clean water in the bowl. "This is the sacred spring you prepared for me, isn't it? Though the water level is a bit low. It's barely enough for me to rinse my mouth." With that, she bent over to take a drink. Panic seized me. I lunged forward and yanked her back. "You don't drink from it. That's for flushing poop." I practically yelled. She stared at me, stunned by my outburst, then asked meekly, "What's poop? Can you eat it?" My blood pressure skyrocketed. After half an hour of frantic gestures and explanations, she finally sort of understood what a toilet was for. Next up, appliances. I showed her how to use the microwave. She stared at the slowly rotating plate inside, her brow furrowed. "Too slow," she muttered. Then, to my horror, she leaned in and breathed a tiny puff of dragon breath on the container of leftovers. With a loud bang, the microwave door blew clean off its hinges. Black smoke poured out, filling the kitchen with the acrid smell of burnt plastic and ruined dinner. Sarah looked at me, completely innocent. "See, husband?" Much faster. Looking at the credit card bill in my hand later that week, I finally understood how expensive raising a dragon could be. In a desperate attempt to keep her occupied, I handed her the TV remote. It worked. She found something to do besides destroying my apartment, and would spend all day curled up on the couch, binge-watching everything. The side effects, however, were immediate. One day, she was watching some period romance drama where a king was barking orders at his court. She turned to me and swore with the utmost seriousness, "Don't you worry, husband. A pathetic creature like that, I could knock him in next week with one flick of my tail. He has no right to command you." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. But the bathroom was my biggest challenge. Sarah became fascinated with the shower head, convinced it was a magical artifact for summoning rain. Her new favorite hobby was playing in the shower, getting herself completely soaked. One day, I came home from work to find water seeping out from under the front door. I burst into the bathroom to find her, hair plastered to her face, dancing gleefully under the spray. "Husband, look," she shouted over the noise. "I'm making it rain for you." Staring at the flooded apartment, I was too tired to even be angry. Sarah's curiosity was boundless. I decided to take her out to buy some actual clothes. Before we left, I made her promise 1,000 times to keep her horns and tail hidden. She nodded obediently, but the second we walked into the mall, her eyes went wide. It was like a country mouse visiting the big city. Then we passed an ice cream shop, and she froze. She tugged on my sleeve, her eyes glued to the colorful tubs in the display case. "Husband, I want that. I'll buy you some on the way home," I said, trying to pull her away. She wouldn't budge. Then she deployed her ultimate weapon. She ripped off the beanie I'd made her wear, exposing her beautiful, crystalline horns to the entire mall. She stood on her tiptoes, gently rubbing her cool horns against my cheek while whispering in the sweetest, most pathetic voice imaginable. "Please, husband, just one scoop." Shopper stared. Several people pulled out their phones, probably thinking she was some amazing cosplayer. My face went from white to red. Finally, I gave in, grabbed her hand, and practically sprinted into the shop, paid, and got us out of there as fast as humanly possible. Back home, I put on my best angry face. Sarah followed me around like a puppy who'd just chewed a shoe, holding out the untouched ice cream cone. "Husband," she said, her voice tiny, "eat this. Then you won't be angry anymore." Looking at her like that, how could I stay mad? In the midst of all this chaos, I realized I was starting to enjoy it. I like being needed by her. Later that night, as she was wrapped around me like an octopus, she whispered in my ear, her voice full of genuine curiosity. "Husband, I was watching TV today. They said that partners are supposed to do more intimate things. What are those?" Once Sarah discovered the internet, it was all over. I bought her a tablet, hoping she'd learn about human society and stop causing disasters. Instead, she dove headfirst into the world of cheesy urban romance dramas and never looked back. Her ability to learn was terrifying. A few days later, I came home from work and opened the door. The usual pounce and hug greeting didn't happen. The apartment was quiet. Sarah was lounging on the couch, wearing one of my white button-down shirts and nothing else, her long legs crossed elegantly. When she heard the door, she slowly raised her head and gave me a cool, appraising look. It sent a shiver down my spine. "What's up with you?" I asked, taking off my shoes. She didn't answer. Instead, she glanced at the clock on the wall. Then her red lips parted. Her voice was low and magnetic. "You're 10 minutes late, man." I nearly choked. That line, it was straight out of that billionaire CEO drama she was watching yesterday. From that day on, the vibe in our apartment changed. Sarah was no longer a clueless, adorable dragon girl. She had adopted the persona of a cool, aloof goddess. When I cooked, she'd supervise from the sidelines, chin resting on her hand. After I served the food, she'd take a delicate bite and offer her critique. It's adequate, barely worthy of my palate." When I dried her hair, she'd close her eyes in ecstasy, then murmur, "Huh? Your technique is acceptable. I grant you this boon." Then she'd open her eyes, lean close, and her warm breath would tickle my ear. "Tonight, I will permit you to be closer to me." Her sudden, bold lines made my heart hammer in my chest, and I'd have to look away to hide my blush. I realized I couldn't think of her as a pet or a child anymore. She was a woman, vibrant and very, very alive. And with this new role came a fierce possessiveness. I was texting a female coworker about a project, and Sarah materialized beside me, her eyes glancing at my screen. Her expression turned to ice. Without a word, she gently took the phone from my hands. Then, looking me dead in the eye, she asked in a voice that brooked no argument, "Who is this woman?" "A colleague. We're talking about work?" I explained. "Husband." She tilted her head, a dangerous glint in her eyes. "Your eyes should only be for me." Before I could react, she took my thumb, used it to unlock the phone, found my coworker's contact, and hit delete. The whole process was so smooth and swift, I couldn't even protest. Then she handed the phone back, her cool mask perfectly in place, as if she hadn't just done something completely insane. I stared at my screen, speechless. Our chaotic little world was interrupted one weekend when my buddy Leo showed up unannounced, a bottle of whiskey in each hand. "Ethan, open up. My girlfriend dumped me. We're getting hammered tonight." His bellowing from the hallway made my blood run cold. Sarah was on the couch watching TV. I sprinted into the living room, whispering frantically, "Go. Get in the bedroom. My friend's here. Don't come out and don't make a sound." My panic seemed to convince her we were under attack. Her horns popped out, and her rainbow-scaled tail materialized, swishing nervously behind her. "Don't worry, husband. I'll handle him. Handle my ass." I shoved her into the bedroom and slammed the door shut. "Don't come out no matter what you hear." I'd barely turned the lock when Leo let himself in with a spare key. "Dude, what's with the locked door?" he boomed, then sniffed the air. "Hey, smells nice in here. What is that?" My heart leaped into my throat. It was Sarah's scent. Incense, I lied smoothly. Leo plopped onto the couch, his eyes scanning the room. He spotted something in the cushions and plucked it out, a single long black hair. "Uh-huh, Ethan," he crowed, waving in my face. "And you said you were single? Who's the girl? Where are you hiding her? It's not what you think. My mom was over the other day. Your mom has a pixie cut." Leo shot back, his grin widening. He lurched to his feet and made a beeline for the bedroom. "Let me see the goddess who finally tamed you." I threw myself in front of the door, blocking his path. "Knock it off. There's no one in there." "Then why are you so nervous?" he slurred, trying to push past me. We wrestled for a minute, but he was a bit drunk and unsteady. He let out a yelp and lost his balance, stumbling backward toward the sharp corner of the coffee table. My eyes widened in horror. I was too far away to catch him. In that split second, a flash of color shot out from under the bedroom door. It was her tail. It wrapped around Leo's waist with perfect precision, stopping his fall and gently depositing him back onto the sofa. The whole thing happened in a blink. Leo just felt a strange squeeze around his middle, and the next thing he knew, he was sitting down. He rubbed his eyes, completely bewildered. "Whoa, I thought I was in a fall. Guess I just sat down." He figured it was the whiskey. My heart was pounding a hole in my chest. I settled him in front of the TV, then bolted for the bedroom. Sarah was standing there, wringing her hands, her tail coiled anxiously. "Husband, I didn't mean to. I was afraid he'd get hurt." Seeing her on the verge of tears, I crossed the room and pulled her into a tight hug. She stiffened for a second, then hugged me back just as hard. After that night, things changed. I stopped seeing her as a problem to be managed and truly accepted her as part of my life. Her dependence on me deepened, but her curiosity about the human world, especially the laptop I stared at for hours every day, never faded. She was particularly fascinated by a folder on my D drive named Research. "Husband, what are you studying in there every day? Why won't you let me see?" she'd ask, pointing at the screen. I'd always blush and mumble some excuse. "It's not for kids. I'm not a kid. I'm thousands of years old." The more I hid it, the more she wanted to see it. One evening, while I was in the shower, she saw her chance. Like a curious cat, she crept up to my still-open laptop. Using her photographic memory, she mimicked my mouse movements and clicked her way into the forbidden folder. 1 layer, 2 layers, 3. Deep in the digital labyrinth, she found it. The screen filled with an array of stunningly graphic thumbnails and file names. A complex expression, a mixture of shock, curiosity, and a dawning understanding, crossed her face. She sat cross-legged in my chair, chin in her hands like a diligent student, and clicked on a video. A moment later, strange sounds filled the room. She watched, completely engrossed, even taking out a little notebook as if to jot down study points. While I walked out of the bathroom, humming, "That's the scene I walked into," Sarah, staring intently at the screen, where a very athletic action movie was playing at full volume. My brain short-circuited. I lunged forward and slammed the laptop shut. The sudden silence was deafening. My face was on fire. I stammered, trying to explain. "Sarah, it's not what you think. I trailed off as she turned to face me. Her eyes were sparkling, not with shame or disgust, but with the thrill of discovery. She licked her lips, her voice taking on a new, husky tone that made my scalp tingle. "Husband," she purred, "so this is what they meant by more intimate things." She pointed at the closed laptop. "That position. Looked very interesting. Should we try to verify my research?" I had severely underestimated the effect of my research materials on a pure-hearted dragon. I had also severely overestimated my ability to resist a dragon who was very eager to apply what she'd learned. From that day forward, Sarah completely let go of her inhibitions. Her personality underwent its third evolution. If the cool goddess phase was all talk, this new phase was all action. I'd be in the kitchen cooking, and she'd slink up behind me, wrapping her arms around my waist, her warm breath on my neck. "Husband, the internet says a man in an apron is the sexiest thing." Her voice was a seductive whisper, especially if it's only an apron. My hand would shake, nearly dumping the entire salt shaker into the pan. I'd be in my study, trying to cool my jets by reading a book, and she'd transform into her little snake form, slither up my pant leg, and poke her head out of my shirt collar. The cool, slick feeling of her scales on my skin sent shivers down my spine. She also learned how to use Amazon. The delivery guy became a regular visitor, dropping off an assortment of bizarre packages. The mystery was solved when she appeared before me in a French-made outfit that was clearly 2 sizes too small, complete with fluffy cat ears. Holding a feather duster, she gave me a formal bow. "Master, do you require any cleaning services at this time?" I nearly had a stroke. Well, I just gaped at her. She tilted her head. "Am I doing it right, husband?" The internet called this role-playing. I was losing my mind, but the nights were the worst. She'd pin me to the couch, her hands on either side of my head, looking down at me like a predator. Her horns would glow faintly with excitement, her eyes reflecting nothing but me. "Don't fight it, husband," she'd command in a low, dangerous voice. "You wouldn't want anyone to find out you have a dragon living here, would you? Tonight, we're field testing the sofa scenario." My life became a daily struggle for survival in a sea of sweet torment. I was constantly fending off her increasingly bold advances while simultaneously being driven half-mad with a desire that was anything but pure. One time, she came to me with her tablet, scrolling through her copious study notes with a frustrated look. "Husband, some of these positions are too difficult. My human body isn't flexible enough." "Just give it up, then. Most professional gymnasts can't do that stuff," I said, breathing a sigh of relief. Finally, she was seeing reason. Her next words made my blood freeze. Her eyes lit up. "I have an idea. Husband, what if I change into my dragon form and use my tail to help you? It's very flexible." I shot off the couch and fled to the bathroom, locking the door behind me. This dragon was going to be the death of me. Sarah might be ancient, but when it came to controlling her strength, especially when she was excited, she was a total kid. We were wrestling on the couch one night, which really meant she was all over me, and I was trying to defend my last shred of dignity. She got a little too into it, and her tail, forgotten in the heat of the moment, whipped out behind her. There was a sickening crack. Her tail had hit my new laptop. The screen spiderwebbed and went black. The playful mood died instantly. So affreux. I stared at the wreckage of my computer, my only thoughts being, my files, my research, my life. Seeing my stunned expression, Sarah panicked. She thought I was angry. "Husband, I didn't mean to." She scrambled off me, wringing her hands as her eyes filled with tears. Her emotional turmoil caused her dragon power to go haywire. The lights in the apartment flickered violently, and appliances started buzzing. I snapped out of it. Laptops could be replaced. A heartbroken dragon wife could not. Without a hint of anger, I pulled her into my arms. Her body was trembling. I stroked her back, my voice as gentle as I could make it. "Hey, silly, what are you crying for? It's just a computer. We'll buy a new one." I tilted her face up and wiped away a tear. "Are you hurt? Does your tail hurt?" Held in my arms, feeling my calm heartbeat, her powers stabilized. The lights returned to normal. She buried her face in my chest, her voice muffled. "Husband, you're so good to me." I smiled and patted her back. She looked up, her eyes still red, and added in a small voice, "So you'll buy a new one?" "As soon as possible." "Of course." "Good. Otherwise I can't continue my studies tomorrow. Or watch my videos." I just sighed. She was incorrigible, but I couldn't help but smile as I tweaked her nose. After that, her love and trust in me became absolute. She finally understood that I accepted all of her, not just the dragon part, but her clumsiness, her mistakes, and her occasional bouts of accidental destruction. Sarah's relentless, pure yet sinful assault on my senses was wearing down my last defenses. I felt like a rubber band stretched to its breaking point. The final snap came late one night. I had to stay late at the office for a last-minute project, and I dragged my exhausted body home through the sleeping city. I quietly turned the key, assuming Sarah was already asleep. But a single, warm lamp was lit in the living room. She was curled up on the corner of the sofa, hugging her knees like a little cat waiting for its owner. When she heard the door, she looked up. The sight of my exhausted face filled her eyes with a deep, aching tenderness. She hopped off the couch and came to me. But this time, she didn't pounce, didn't whisper any of her usual teasing lines. She said nothing at all. She just stood on her tiptoes, wrapped her arms around my neck, and pressed a soft, gentle, comforting kiss to my lips. Then, she took my hand and led me to the bathroom. The tub was already filled with hot water, fragrant petals floating on the surface. That simple, loving gesture hit me right in the heart. All the stress, all the fatigue just melted away. In that moment, I realized she was no longer just a chaotic force of nature I had to take care of. She was my partner, my solace. When I emerged from the bathroom, wrapped in a towel, she hugged me again. This time, her eyes held none of her practiced seduction, only pure, unfiltered love. "Husband," she whispered, her voice earnest and true. "I love you." She paused, a playful spark returning. "So, let's continue our studies tonight." Wait, was it knowledge or poses? I forget. My defenses crumbled into dust. I leaned down and captured her lips in a fierce kiss, all restraint gone. "Me too," I rasped. I swept her up into my arms and carried her toward the bedroom. "But Sarah, I'm pretty tired today." She snuggled against me, winking as she rubbed her horn against my chin. "Good. The more tired you are, the better you'll sleep." That night, there was no more teasing, no more running away. The soft, seven-colored light from Sarah's horns illuminated two figures, finally and completely intertwined. After that, our life together entered a new, sweeter phase. Her tail became my personal body pillow, cool in the summer and warm in the winter. She dropped the aloof goddess act for good and reverted to being my clingy little dragon. Waking up to find her happily draped over me became my new normal. But then, things started to feel off. Sarah was sleeping all the time. I'd be cooking dinner, and she'd just pass out on the sofa. She lost all interest in her favorite junk foods: chips, fried chicken, soda. Instead, she developed an obsession with the dill pickles my mom makes, munching on them straight from the jar. I started to worry. "Sarah, are you sick? Is the human world not agreeing with you?" She just waved a pickle at me dismissively. "No way. I'm a dragon. I'm perfectly healthy." But she looked paler every day. I Googled her symptoms: fatigue, loss of appetite, craving sour foods. As I read, a crazy, yet somehow plausible, idea began to form. No way. Could it be? I managed to convince her to use a pregnancy test I bought from the pharmacy. She held the little plastic stick, completely baffled. "Husband, what's this?" "A new toy." "Not a toy. Just follow the instructions." I pushed her into the bathroom. A few minutes later, she came out, waving the stick in my face. Husband, look," she squealed, practically vibrating with excitement. "It's 2 lines. I saw this on TV. The lady had 2 lines, and the doctors said she was having a baby." She threw her arms around me, her face glowing. "I'm pregnant. We're going to have a little dragon." My world tilted on its axis. I snatched the test from her hand. 2 bright pink lines stared back at me, mocking my entire existence. My brain felt like scrambled eggs. I was shocked, thrilled, and a little bit pissed off all at once. I looked at her, still beaming, and my voice came out louder than I intended. "I thought you said you had special dragon powers, that you could, force it out. How could this happen? We should have been more careful." At my accusatory tone, her excitement dimmed. She looked away guiltily and gave a defiant little pout. "Well, you believe me," she mumbled, her voice barely a whisper. "That day, I was just feeling lazy. I didn't want to bother. How was I supposed to know?" She trailed off, scratching her head. "Besides, it shouldn't be this easy. Am I some kind of super fertile dragon type?" Watching her seriously ponder the biological intricacies, my anger just evaporated, replaced by a weary sort of amusement. She gave up thinking about it, shaking her head. "Ugh, whatever." The next second, her entire demeanor shifted. She put her hands on her hips, puffed out her still flat stomach, and leveled me with a look of pure, unadulterated command. "I don't care," she announced. "The baby's already on the way, so you're not getting away from me." She marched right up to me, stood on her tiptoes, and poked me under the chin with one of her horns. Her eyes were blazing with a non-negotiable demand. "Marriage," she declared. "We are getting married tomorrow." Looking at this fierce, adorable, ridiculous dragon, so desperately try to lock me down after her own lazy mistake, all I could do was laugh. What choice did I have? She was my dragon, and I was hers. I pulled her into my arms and kissed her forehead. Okay, we'll get married. Right away. I took out my phone as she watched, a smug, triumphant look on her face. I dialed my parents. When my mom answered, I took a deep breath. Hey, Mom, Dad, you guys should probably sit down. I'm getting married. I paused, a grin spreading across my face. Oh, and you might want to start shopping for Grandma's stuff. And